What's going on, guys? It's Troydan here. And today, we've got YouTube channels that were abandoned for disturbing reasons. I had a channel that was abandoned once, and I don't want to talk about it. 3, 2, 1, go!
From Vermont, USA. He spent most of his early years in the tiny town of Heinsberg. Life there was calm and peaceful, but with a population of less than 600 residents, it was also quite boring.
That's a lot of people.
Elliot wanted to do something more with his
at least.
life. So, with his love for nature and exploration in mind, he saved up some money and traveled to the Philippines near the end of 2023. He wanted to slowly make his way through the entire country and witness its beauty firsthand. But just a couple months into his trip, he met a local woman named Carisha Jayla. The two started dating and got married just a few months after that, in July of 2023.
Oh my God. 2
Then
months?
in January 2024, Elliot started posting videos on YouTube.
Hold on, I'm allowed to have 3 pauses of video now. If you get married in the first 2 or 3 months, it is not gonna work. You heard it here first.
His life in the Philippines with his wife. His videos were simple, without any over-the-top music or crazy editing effects, but they felt authentic and real, allowing him to amass a small but dedicated fan base. Though his content took a massive shift in May 2024 when he decided to move to the beachside village his wife was from in the Cebuco municipality. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before this spiraled into the worst decision he'd ever make.
Oh?
You see, Cebuco is part of what's known as the Red Zone in the Philippines. Put simply, this is the most dangerous section of the country, especially for foreigners. Armed robberies, kidnappings, and even murders are not uncommon in this region, with over 40 Westerners going missing there in just the last decade. However, Elliot was well aware of this fact, as evident from his channel's description, which read, "I'm Elliot Eastman. I am 26 years old and I came to the Philippines about a year and a half ago, where I met the love of my life deep in the mountains of the Red Zone of the Philippines. I will be showing you my day-to-day life as the first and only foreigner to have ever lived here in Cebuco for a long period of time."
Yeah, I'm gonna use my second pause right now. This is to anyone out there. Don't do this for a girl. Get a whore instead. They have them in Reno. They're very cheap compared to this.
Mentioned the danger in some of his video titles as well. But despite the threat to his life, he still wanted to build a life in Cebuco. So he rented an apartment and even built his own grocery shop near the beach, all while documenting the entirety of his journey on YouTube. Now, there were times when he felt threatened and had to hide from some locals to avoid getting in serious trouble. But despite the somewhat dire circumstances, Elliot was enjoying his time in Cebuco and slowly building the life he wanted. However, just when things were starting to look up for Elliot, tragedy struck. The incident took place on the night of October 17th, 2024. When, after doing several short live streams throughout the day, Elliot went offline and sat for dinner with his wife and her parents. But then, a few minutes later, 4 men with guns barged into their home and started telling Elliot to go outside. These men were also wearing outfits similar to those of the Filipino police, likely in hopes of making Elliot more cooperative. Elliot, however, saw through their disguise and tried to run away. Unfortunately, that's when things went from bad to worse. One of them opened fire and ended up shooting Elliot twice, once in the leg and once in the abdomen. They then dragged him onto the speedboat they had docked near their home and sped off into the darkness.
Holy shit.
This was the last time anyone saw Elliot alive. By the time the police launched a search and rescue mission, the kidnapper's boat was nowhere to be found. The investigation then went on for nearly a month until the 12th of November. But when the police eventually located the kidnappers, they were forced into a shootout, resulting in 3 of the 4 culprits losing their lives. And while they did manage to arrest the last kidnapper, it was already too late. According to the kidnapper, Elliot succumbed to his injuries when he was on the speedboat. So the kidnappers simply threw his body overboard to hide the primary evidence of their crime. Unfortunately, the police were unable to locate his remains and pronounced him officially dead in December of 2024. However, one question still remained unanswered. Why? Why did these 4 criminals target Elliot?
Probably cartel.
Well, the simplest explanation
there,
is also the most likely one. They just wanted to kidnap him for ransom. Carisha even had a first-hand experience with this, as back in high school, one of her Canadian classmates was kidnapped and held for a ransom of $50,000 US. That said, there's also a second potential explanation that has to do with Elliot's side business. You see, while operating his grocery store, Elliot also started lending the locals money for 20% interest. A local loan shark likely saw him as a competitor and sought to eliminate Elliot before he took away any more of his business. This would also explain why the intruders were so quick to open fire if they wanted to hold him for ransom.
I think you forgot to say
Regardless of their motive, the end result was the loss of a young man trying to make a life for himself with his wife in a foreign land. His YouTube channel now sits abandoned, with its many uploads remaining as proof as the life he once lived.
That's great. Oh, it's still there. That's crazy. That's kind of dark. And I'll drop my sub.
Benjamin Pardoon, known online as Warner the Goobermeister, was a comedian creator on YouTube who primarily focused on creating a genre of memes known as YouTube poops, which is a subgenre of online humor that revolves around taking clips from other shows, usually cartoons, and editing them to have a bizarre, often nonsensical tone. Over time, Benjamin's channel had amassed over 8.7 million views, making him a well-known name in the YTP community. But after his upload on December 21st, 2021, he suddenly vanished from the internet, leaving his fans wondering what could have happened. Unfortunately, the reason for his disappearance was far more tragic than simply getting bored and moving on from the channel, as most of his audience had assumed. The incident took place on the 27th of January 2022, when his older brother Chris tried to contact him many times but didn't hear back. Left with no other option, Chris called the police at around 8 p.m. to check on his parents and little brother. When the officers arrived at his house, the lights were on, but no one was answering the door. After repeated knocks, the officers knew something was off, so they decided to break in. But nothing could have prepared them for the horrific scene they saw behind that door. Inside, they found the bodies of Benjamin and his parents, all with visible gunshot wounds. However, what looked like a robbery gone wrong turned out to be far more tragic. According to the investigation, both Benjamin and his mother Deborah were shot by his father that evening, who, after committing the crime, decided to end things for himself as well. The news of this incident was a massive shock for Benjamin's viewers, as he'd never mentioned any family troubles before. Chris later set up a GoFundMe page in November of 2022, which not only allowed Benjamin's fans to support the only living member of his family, it also gave some insight into what might have happened. According to Chris, Benjamin was born in 2005 and was soon diagnosed with autism. This made it difficult for him to interact with people in person. Because of this, he was homeschooled, and at just 8 years old, he started uploading on YouTube, hoping to make friends and find a sense of community. Sadly, Benjamin's condition was far from the only challenge their family had to face. Deborah was also suffering from nerve damage after an accident.
That's crazy.
And the father, Gregory, had also gotten in a car accident in the past and could barely walk. On top of that, the family was also struggling with severe financial issues, which could explain why Gregory felt the need to take such a drastic measure, seemingly out of nowhere. As Chris puts it, "My dad was a proud man. He was ashamed to ask or seek out help." Although Benjamin's content was somewhat niche, it left a big impact on those who came across it, with some even uploading new videos in his style to keep his memory alive.
Keep the poop alive. Oh my, I had no idea that kid made YouTube
Harley
poop.
Dilly was a YouTube channel run by a 14-year-old teenager from Ohio with the same name. He created the channel in 2013 to share his love of gaming, specifically the sports game Madden, with others.
The Madden Mobile?
He also uploaded vlogs on YouTube, where he talked about anything that was on his mind that day. But for Harley himself, these were more than just videos. They were one of the many forms of escape he had from his troubled life. You see, Harley suffered from oppositional defiant disorder and was also diagnosed with high-functioning autism. This resulted in him getting into heated arguments with his parents quite often and subsequently ending up in a worse situation. In one instance, he even posted a video talking about how he was locked out of the house after an argument with his mother, titled, "I'm Scared."
Hey guys, what's up? It is Harley Dilly. Probably one of my worst days in my life. I was at school and I was science test. I finished it and my computer says 1% battery left. So I get to the next class and I put it on charger as quick as possible, but it didn't charge.
Oh, he didn't save his work.
None of the computers would take a charge. So I took it back and I had to fill out a complaint, and that's one of the most expensive parts of the computer. And my mom said she's not paying anything. We argued for about a good 5 minutes. Then she snapped. She said she was gonna call the police, and she said she already did. And she locked me out of the house. So right now I'm outside. Yep, the house is locked. It is 3:30. I haven't ate anything, and I still haven't even got to get my work done. My mom's gone. She won't answer the phone.
There were also allegations of some of his family members being physically aggressive to him. But despite all this, Harley was still a cheerful kid who wanted nothing more than to play Madden and grow his YouTube channel. Unfortunately, this ambition was tragically cut short on December 20th, 2019 when Harley went to school and never came back. The day had started off rough. Harley was still upset after arguing with his parents the night before as they had refused to replace his broken smartphone. He also didn't want to go to school that day. But his mother Heather woke up early that day and after some more arguing, convinced him to go. He left his house just before 7 a.m. But he was somehow absent from school and didn't return home that evening either. Harley had disappeared without a trace. Surprisingly, his family didn't report him missing until 11:50 p.m. on December 21st, nearly 43 hours after he vanished. Their explanation for the delay was simple. According to them, Harley had spent the night at friends' houses without telling them before, usually after an argument. They assumed this time was the same. However, they couldn't have been more wrong.
A bit of a race.
Something that became increasingly clear as the police investigation dragged on for days without uncovering a single clue about his whereabouts. The only thing they found was this low-resolution picture of Harley going to school that was taken from a neighbor's security camera.
What kind of camera is this?
And that was it. Eventually, many other organizations, including the FBI, joined the search as well. They also distributed his missing posters nationwide and offered an $18,000 reward, hoping to receive any information that could lead them in the right direction. Unfortunately, although they received numerous tips, none led to any significant progress in the case. That is until the 13th of January, over 23 days after Harley went missing, when the investigators made the big discovery. They were recanvassing the area immediately surrounding Harley's home when one of the investigators decided to check out the vacant house directly across from the Dilly residence. This was a summer home and was fully locked at the time. There was also no indications of anyone breaking into the home. However, the investigators had looked everywhere else to no avail. This was one of their last options. So they acquired the key to this home and started looking around. They didn't find anything on the ground floor. But as soon as they climbed the stairs, one of them noticed a maroon puffer jacket lying on the ground, the same jacket that Harley was wearing on the morning of his disappearance. As they got closer, they also noticed his glasses lying on the floor as well. But there were no signs of Harley anywhere. Both the glasses and the jacket had also collected plenty of dirt, indicating that they must have been there for a long time. While they were looking around, one of the investigators noticed the chimney vent above where his glasses and jacket were discovered. This sort of vent is used to connect traditional wood-burning heaters. Curious to see what was in it, he reached into the hole, only for his hand to touch human hair on the other side. There was no doubt about it. That was Harley, stuck in the chimney. Officers quickly dismantled the wall, and sure enough, they found Harley's body inside, with his arms raised above his head. A later autopsy concluded that he likely passed away the day he went missing. His particular position at the time of discovery also helped investigators piece together what might have happened that day. As the story goes, Harley didn't want to go to school that day, so he decided to spend the time at the vacant home until the afternoon to make it seem like he went to school. But when he couldn't find a way in from the ground floor, he climbed onto the roof using the antenna tower beside the house. From there, he looked into the chimney and saw a relatively short drop and chose to climb down it to enter the house. However, what he failed to realize was that this chimney didn't lead to a spacious fireplace. Instead, it only connected to a couple of small vents for heater exhausts, leaving him stuck at the bottom. Due to the way he climbed down, his jacket was likely halfway removed already.
Bro, what?
So he pushed it through the vent to free up some space, and his glasses fell through as well. Sadly, there was nothing else he could do in that position. His chest was pressed tightly against the chimney's wall, making it impossible to breathe, resulting in him slowly succumbing to asphyxiation.
Jesus.
Put simply, this was nothing more than a tragic accident.
Dude, that was...
Now, given this conclusion, Harley's case should have ended there. However, some people, especially as YouTube viewers, weren't satisfied with the official report. Many of them believed that this wasn't an accident at all. Rumors started going around the internet that Harley's death was actually a murder committed by his own family. One of the first big points of contention was his jacket, since in one of the evidence images it could be seen hanging from the door. These critics claimed that this was proof of the whole story being a lie. Some also argued that the shoes he was wearing in his last picture didn't match the ones the investigators found on him. However, despite the skepticism, the police stuck with their initial report.
I use a pause.
As for the jacket
how would the parents get him in there? I mean, it's crazy enough that he climbed the roof. Do you think that mom did not look very agile? I don't know, man.
That turned out to be nothing more than the result of one of the inexperienced investigators mistakenly moving key evidence. That said, whatever the truth may be, it doesn't change the fact that the YouTube community lost a genuine and passionate creator.
That's awful. That's an awful way to... Jeez, I went completely
Nicholas
different than I thought it
Sonderegger
was
was a 28-year-old YouTuber who loved two things in life, longboarding and dancing. He uploaded nearly 80 videos of himself doing both of these on his channel named Sunspeak, though his ultimate dream was to become a professional dancer. By 2017, he was living in San Diego with his friend Austin to try and make his dream come true. However, the two were completely broke and couldn't afford California's high rent prices. So, with no other option, the two decided to live in tents or random trailers they could find in the Sultan Sea area. Sultan Sea used to be a popular tourist destination at one point due to its status as an oasis in the middle of the desert. But the water and the surrounding area became extremely toxic over time, turning it into a complete ghost town. On the flip side, this also made living there essentially free, which is what Nick and Austin were after. But what neither of them knew at the time was that the true danger of Sultan Sea had nothing to do with its toxic climate. This danger came face to face with the two on the night of September 9th, 2018 at around 2 a.m. They were asleep in their tent when suddenly they were jolted awake by an extremely loud scream coming from the tree line not far from their camp.
Buffalo?
Fearing for their safety, they decided to just ignore it altogether and go back to sleep. Or that's at least what Austin thought. For some unknown reason, Nick later decided to go investigate the scream on his own after Austin had fallen back asleep. By the time Austin woke up the next morning, Nick was gone. He tried looking around for his longtime friend around town and discovered his flashlight lying on the ground just a block away from their tent. He immediately contacted the police and reported Nick as missing, who began looking for him almost immediately. But all they found was one of his boots, his pants, and his knife sleeve. His other boot, as well as his wallet and keys, were missing. More importantly, Nick himself was nowhere to be found. What made the situation even more bizarre was what happened days later.
What?
Austin returned to the same area he had already searched, but this time he found Nick's shirt and hat lying there, items that weren't there before. In other words, someone had likely placed them in that spot later. Sadly, the identity of this person was never uncovered, leaving Nick's case a complete mystery to this day.
You gonna leave us with
Nick's
that?
family has set up a website with all the information they have. They've also announced a $10,000 reward for any useful information. But despite these efforts, the case has remained cold.
That's great.
In fact, there are so few clues that I wasn't even able to find any solid theories either. Some have speculated that Austin might have killed Nick and hidden his body. However, the police investigation uncovered no evidence of foul play. There's still a chance that some unexpected discovery would crack this case wide open. But until then, Nick's disappearance remains an unsolved mystery, and his YouTube channel remains abandoned.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. They just hear something in the woods and just disappear, a cackle or something. I don't think it was a buffalo. But in my debate, YouTube channels abandoned for disturbing reasons. These were definitely disturbing. I was not expecting some of these, especially that kid that fell down the chimney. God, that was awful. Guys, if you got a video like for me to watch or react to, you can post it in my Discord. Thank you for watching, and kids, stay out of trouble.